I think if you look at the context of the sell-off, it doesn't change the story of gold, and so I'm a buyer.
So that implies you think it will not only recover after the recent drop, but it will carry on going.
Absolutely, Jeremy. I think if you look at what happened in the last couple of days, started in Japan. There was gold reached a 40-year high in yen terms, which set alarm bells ringing in central banks around the world because they're trying to manage their currencies against gold, and gold is a barometer that tells them that they're doing a bad job. So once gold spiked up in this way, panic bells rang, and they went after gold.
Sure, but explain this to us. I thought we abandoned the gold standard years ago.
We did. The thing about gold is that the only reason it has value is that it always has. People buy it because other people buy it. Of course, it has some use as jewellery and so on, but for the most part, it's a kind of investment that's a bet on civilizational collapse.
But let's look at that gold standard question for a second, because since 2009, central banks have been buyers of gold for the first time in decades because they don't trust each other. And Cyprus, to get out of their constraints, they're talking about selling their gold. Same thing for Greece. So although there's not a formal gold standard, there is emerging an informal gold standard. And the central banks are saying the only way that we can keep our price parity with these other fiat currencies is by keeping that price of gold down. And we saw that on Friday, 500 tons of gold, paper gold sold.
You would agree
panic
it's just,
selling.
but look, we've got some over there.
Yeah.
We'd never go anywhere without it. But that is just a bit of shiny metal. That's all it is.
Jeremy,
it has no objective value. Sorry.
Then why are the central banks tripping over themselves to buy gold? They don't trust each other.
Conspiracy theory. It is not central banks.
No, they've been buying it heavily since 2009. Last year, more than ever before. Hundreds and hundreds of tons. And I'll tell you, two countries in particular that are interested in gold right now are Russia and China, because they see that in the U.S.,
but the thing is, this isn't the story. It's not central banks who have been selling it recently.
That's right, they're buying it.
It's not central banks who have been selling it, and therefore this price drop, isn't it?
They're buying it.
The thing that's been pushing gold up, the thing that's been kind of driving gold up is things like exchange-traded funds. People have been seeing the fact that gold's been going up, and they've been buying it as an investment because, they've been buying it as a speculative thing. There are all sorts of financial innovation over the last few years which allow you to buy gold in your pension fund or whatever, and all of a sudden people are panicking. And the big sell-offs over the last few days have been exchange
the lines outside gold buying shops and all across Asia today are long. People are taking advantage of this discount, and they're running to buy gold.
Private firms are selling it.
They're being forced to sell in a lot of ways. The hedge funds, like the Paulson's fund and the other funds, are being forced out by forced selling through manipulation of futures contracts to many instances.
Tell me, why is it a good way of storing wealth? Why do people believe it to be a way of storing wealth?
There's not very much of it. It's quite easy to carry around. I mean, you see a block like that we've got over there is worth several £1,000s, and you can divide it up. It's easily measurable. I mean, historically, there are good reasons why it was used as currency, but I just think as a civilization, we've kind of moved past that.
There's another factor here, Jeremy, which is that the central banks and the too big to fail banks don't trust each other. That's why they're not lending into this marketplace, because they want to hoard that cash. The British government is engaged in quantitative easing, and the banks are simply hoarding that cash. They're not lending it into the marketplace because they don't trust each other anymore, because they know the balance sheets of these banks, the too big to fail banks here in the UK, are horrible, and they'll probably require another huge bailout. So they're looking to buy gold to hedge themselves against what they see as an emerging crisis.
So it is a bet against collapse. It's a bet on collapse, in fact.
It's a asset that has no counterparty risk. All these banks have counterparty risk. The balance sheets of the big four banks here in the UK are highly questionable what those assets are truly worth.
There is objective fact that we can start feeding in here, isn't there? I mean, if you live in a society in which a bank may be ordered by government not to pay out money that is your money, may not be allowed to give it back to you without applying a surcharge, as has happened in Cyprus, then of course gold becomes pretty attractive, doesn't it?
If I lived somewhere like Afghanistan in 1979 and I were leaving and the Soviet tanks were raiding in, if I lived in Germany in 1939, then I don't believe that it is happening. It is happening in Cyprus. It's happening It is. I just don't believe this
Jeremy,
argument that
this man is a paper bug. He's a paper bug. He believes in paper at any cost. He doesn't want to look at the reason.
Let's just address this question of the insecurity that people feel about money.
That is why gold goes up in times of when people are slightly less trusting of government, and it is true that in the last few years, as the recession's hit, there have been reasons to worry about the state of the financial system, and that's pushed it up. But the thing is, I think we've had 5 years now. The euro still hasn't collapsed.
Right.
I think we can safely say that these have been overblown.
Do you understand, though, leaving this economic question about banks aside for a second? What is it about gold, the feel of gold, the look of gold, the luster of the stuff that appeals so atavistically to us?
Gosh, I don't know. It's a shiny metal.
Well, it goes back to Aristotle, who declared gold is suitable as money because it fulfilled certain characteristics.
So it's simply its financial value, its transactional value. It's not to do with anything intrinsic to its colour or its feel.
This is the amazing point you hear in debates like this. They'll say, especially on this network, that gold, after all, has no intrinsic value. And yet, the very essence of gold is its intrinsic value. There's no counterparty risk.
It takes people value. It's something that's come out of the ground.
People accept gold in any situation.
But that's because they always
in any crisis, they'll never say, "I'm not going to accept gold." However, they might say, "I won't accept your British pounds. I won't accept your U.S. dollars," because that's just paper. This is backed by the government, and that government's in crisis. But they will take gold. It has value.
But that is not because it has intrinsic value. It is because they believe
rare.
It has value.
It is intrinsic value in that it has rarity, it has scarcity, it is fungible, it has all these properties that make it suitable for money.
There's value. It's socially constructed value, as any currency is. I mean,
but
all it has is the weight of history.
Here's the British pound. Its value is being debased every single day. When Mark Carney comes
hang on. The British pound has got a lot more valuable relative to gold in the last few days. Is
that why prices are up 8%?
They're not.
In the last year?
That's just it.
All right, you two. That's it.
That's inflation in the UK.
That's it. There's obviously something in the water tonight. I don't know what it is. Anyway, thank you all very much, or both of you. It seems like about 12, but thank you both very much. Apparently, they want me to read you out tomorrow morning's front pages. I can't think why, because you'll not be surprised to hear it's the same story on all of them. On the Times, on the Daily Mail, that's Carol Thatcher, The Guardian, and the front page of the Daily Express. There's a picture on the front page of the Financial Times as well, and on the front page of the Daily Mirror as well. That's enough from us. Gavin will be here tomorrow. Good night.
Good evening. A real buffeting from the winds through the night and some more heavy rain crossing many northwestern areas still with us first thing.